Welcome to the Story Learning Podcast, regular doses of language learning tips and motivation to help you become fluent in any language. With me, Olly Richards. For language programs, books, free resources, and much more, visit StoryLearning.com. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the I Will Teach You a Language podcast. If you are learning a language, you're in the right place. Twice a week, you get a couple of thought-provoking episodes from me, sometimes throwing the cat among the pigeons, as I did in the last episode, but more often than not, replying to your questions about language learning to help you become a better language learner so that you can fashion the life that you want out of the mold that's been given to you. Because that's what it's all about, really. So we've got a question today about a familiar topic, but again, it's not something that's come up for a while, so I think it's worth revisiting. Quick note about the podcast survey. We are running a survey so that you can tell us what you think about the podcast. I'm open to changing things about the format based on what you like and what you don't like. Please take a second to fill out the podcast survey. It won't be up for much longer, so please do that soon. You can find that at iwillteachyoualanguage.com/podcast survey. That's iwillteachyoualanguage.com/podcast survey, all one word there. All right, then. Today we are going to talk about a question that's coming through email from Ed. And Ed says, "Hi Ollie, thanks for your ongoing great work with the podcast. My question is about subtitles. In a previous podcast, I heard you mention that reading subtitles in English may not be that beneficial, e.g. when watching a film in a foreign language. I thought because you would be hearing the language in the background, it would be similar to listening to audio with transcript, which is useful for picking up words you would usually miss out on. Any insight is appreciated. By the way, I've often heard it said that it's better to watch a film in your native language and put on foreign subtitles. Maybe that's a different debate, but would be interested to hear your thoughts on that also. Regards, Ed." Ed, thank you very much for a great question. By the way, guys, you can always send me questions by email. I've got a system in place for getting through them now. In fact, based on the current record, you actually get your question answered sooner if you do send it through via email, because we've got so many voice questions. But anyway, okay, so here's the thing with this debate, because every time I talk about it, this issue of subtitles with movies, it kind of seems to kick up a bunch of further questions. And I think part of this is, the difficulty with part of this is that there are so many different permutations. So you can watch a film in English, you can watch a film in your target language, and with both of those, you can have different subtitles. So you can watch a film in English with English subtitles. I do that sometimes if I'm in a noisy room. I'll actually put on subtitles so I don't have to turn up the volume too loud. I can watch an English movie with foreign subtitles, or I could watch a foreign film with subtitles in the target language, or I can watch that foreign film with English subtitles. And with each different permutation of this, there's a kind of different set of considerations, right? So I'm not going to go through all of those here. So I think we've got to come back to fundamentals here. And the first thing to say is that there's no real right and wrong here. And if you find the golden rule is, if something is beneficial for you, then keep doing it. I think, again, my aim is to try and get you to understand what's most beneficial for you. If you can get to a point where you understand, you can really appreciate and say, you know what, this is beneficial for me, I can see it's working and helping, then I kind of feel like I've done my job. As I tweeted out this quote recently that my old piano teacher used to say to me, which is that, he said to me, "Ollie, as a teacher, I have succeeded when you don't need me anymore." And I always thought that's great. People seem to like that on Twitter as well. They got retweeted quite a bit. So again, my answer here is basically just making you aware of the different issues. So my basic stance on this is that if you're watching a movie in a foreign language, then subtitles are, on the whole, not going to be a good thing unless you've got a very good reason to put them on, okay? Why? Because when you're watching a movie, what are you doing? Well, aside from enjoying the movie, you're practicing listening skills. That's what a movie is for in terms of language practice. It's the most kind of obvious benefit of watching a movie in a foreign language. It is having practice at listening comprehension. So, what happens if you put subtitles on? Well, if you put subtitles on in English, then what you're doing is you are then starting to immediately remove the challenge. So rather than strain to understand, or push yourself rather, I should say, well, it could be straining or pushing yourself, it's a different question of degree. But then straight away what's happening is you are now eliminating much of the struggle from the listening, and then you are kind of leaning on the English subtitles to help you understand. Now, is that a bad thing in and of itself? No, not really. But let's not pretend that this is some kind of really good language learning activity here. Okay, if you want to just watch the movie for fun in the language while reading in English, fine, you go ahead and do that. Absolutely, knock yourself out. But if we are talking about this as a language learning activity, then the question is, how effective is it? And in that case, what I would say to you is, well, if we're aiming to practice listening skills, then don't watch the movie with English subtitles. Go and get something like Conversations, which is designed for that specific purpose. So you've got audio in the target language together with the transcript, so that you can read along to help you with your listening comprehension. And then, only then, if you need it, you've then got word lists so that you can check the meaning of words you don't know. And then as a very final last resort, you've got the translation so you can read what's going on. But you've got a kind of gradual decrease in the level of difficulty as you need it, so that you're getting as much struggle as you can, because it's the struggle where the learning lies. It's in that struggle that the learning lies, okay? The problem with putting English subtitles on for a movie is that right away you've gone from sort of 10 to 0, if you like, where 10 is like maximum struggle listening to the audio, and 0 is, it's just given to you on a plate with the English subtitles. Okay, so as a language learning activity by itself, it's not gonna, there are far better alternatives. I think that's the main point. Now, option number 2 is watching that movie in the foreign language, but having the subtitles in the language itself. Now, this is a much better option as far as I'm concerned. I don't see any real problem with this. Again, when would it be useful? Well, it would be particularly useful if the audio, if the speech in the movie is far too hard for you, then you might find that by turning on the subtitles in the target language, that kind of gives you the scaffold you need to catch the words, make sense of what's going on. I think that can be super helpful. Again, you have to kind of be the judge of whether that's something you need or not, whether it's helping you or not. There are just things that you have to be aware of, though, which are specifically that depending on the language you're learning, the subtitles may not be the same as what's actually spoken. Often there's not enough space to put verbatim on the subtitles what's actually said, right? So, and the problems can get much worse than that. So, for example, in Cantonese, the subtitles are always in Mandarin. So, in fact, what's written and what's said are two totally different things. So it can be helpful. You kind of be the judge. Again, in general, like, I prefer to have a transcript in front of me, because I find that when you've got the transcript in front of you, you can look forward, you can look back, you can reread passages. You can underline, you can circle. It's there for you to handle as a text, as a kind of body of text, which is much more conducive to good learning, I think. The problem is with movies is that you've got to skip forward and back. It's just not in a format that is convenient for learning. So on the whole, I just don't really rate it. But then, if you enjoy what you're watching, and the language is at a right level, then absolutely that can be cool. So go for it. So then, earlier I said we can't go through all the permutations of movies, but actually that's exactly what I'm doing. So we may as well carry on, right? So the other thing you can do is to watch English movies in English with the subtitles in the target language, and it's going to be a really interesting little experiment. I remember when I first went to Brazil, 2001, something like that, ages ago. I was with my friend Deborah in Rio, and I got sick, and I was kind of knocked out for a few days. And her brother, Rafael, was also sick at the same time. So we sat watching Woody Allen movies, and he was watching these movies in English, but he had Portuguese subtitles on. So I was kind of watching the Woody Allen movies in English whilst reading the Portuguese subtitles. And actually, it really helped me because in that situation, what's going on is that the source language, which is English, is completely comprehensible to you. So meaning is taken care of. Right? Usually when you're watching a movie in the target language, the big problem is meaning, right? You don't understand the meaning because it's too hard. When you're watching a movie in English, the meaning is taken care of, which then allows you to actually look at the language used in the subtitles in a very objective way, because you know what it means. You're just kind of trying to decode the language. And I remember picking up quite a few nice little vocabulary words while doing that. So I think that's an interesting thing to do as well. How much you'd want to do it, how often you want to do it, I don't know. I think as long as it's enjoyable and as long as it's complementing a kind of broader study method where you're listening to lots of language in the target language as well, then I think it's great. If you're obviously learning things, then keep it up and all power to you. So I hope that was helpful, Ed. I've tried to cover, having started out by saying I wouldn't cover all the different permutations I actually have. Maybe I'm getting better at explaining these things as I get more experience. So there you go. Again, remember, ultimately, it's all about what works for you. So if something's beneficial, keep doing it. I always find, like, whenever I'm studying in a way that is that's working for me, I can clearly put my finger on something and say, look, this is working for me right now. Then I milk it for all it's worth. I just keep doing it, because I find that, like, my motivations change, the things that I do change inevitably. And so, the best thing is to just take as much advantage as you can of something while it's working for you. So cheers, Ed. Good luck. If you would like to ask me a question, please go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/ask. That's a place where you can leave a voice question. Alternatively, you can send me an email. Olly at iwillteachyoualanguage.com is the place to do that. Now, at the end of every episode, I like to leave you with a resource of some kind on the topic of the show. Now, obviously, Ed is writing in because it's a question about movies, but questions about movies are basically about listening skills, right? How can I develop? How can I use listening material to help my comprehension in the language, or how can I improve my listening skills so that I'm able to deal with movies and other native speaker level material? Earlier in my reply to Ed, I mentioned conversations. And for those of you who are newer to the podcast, you might not know what this is. Conversations is a listening program that I developed specifically to help you break through the intermediate level in the language that you're learning. It is all based around story. So we have the whole thing is 20 chapters long. It tells a story. And the material has been written to be just at the right level. So it's not like movies where, movies are the problem in movies is they're too hard. So you can try to listen, but then you can't keep up, and you get flustered and you get bored and you get annoyed because you can't keep up. That's why you switch on the subtitles, right? With conversations, it's at a comprehensible level. So you can deal with the language, you can enjoy the story. But the best thing is it comes with all the tools that you need to actually learn from it and improve your level in the language. So you've got full transcripts for all of the audio. So you can read along and match the words on the page to the words that you hear. You've got word lists so that difficult words are defined and glossed so that you don't have to switch to the English translation. And then, of course, eventually, if you want, you've got the English translation so you can check the meaning. But it takes you step by step through a process of spending lots of time listening to the language so that you can improve your listening skills and ultimately your ability to take part in enjoyable conversations in the language. If you'd like to check it out, we have it available in French, Spanish, German, Italian, Chinese, and Japanese, and Cantonese as well, 7 languages. And you can find that at iwillteachyoualanguage.com/conversations. That's it for now. See you back in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to today's episode, and in case you didn't already know, I teach languages in a rather unusual way, through stories. Now, stories are a great way to learn a new language because when you're engrossed in a story, you remember things more easily, and the mechanics of the language just start clicking inside your brain. It's quite something, and if you'd like to find out how you can learn a new language or improve your skills in a language that you already know and do it with the power of stories, then you should check out my free Story Learning Kit, which will teach you exactly how this method works and how you can use it yourself to learn a new language. Visit storylearning.com/podkit, that's PODKIT, to get free access. Inside you'll find explanatory videos, masterclasses, worksheets, short stories to practice with, and much, much more. Once again, that is storylearning.com/podkit. PODKIT, PODKIT, and if you're lucky, you might also find a link in the podcast description or show notes of this episode.